Kia ora koutou whānau. Here we go. JK already in there, man. Let's go. Kia ora team. Kia ora whānau. Look, people already, mate. Jumping in there. Kia ora, everybody. Kia ora, kia ora, kia ora, everybody. Video and Discord. Oh, there's just conversations already starting. We noticed you guys were in there for half an hour on Thursday night before we even got here, having a bit of a chat. Kia ora, Connor. Kia ora, Michael.
I think that just goes to prove that
Felix.
The extra half hour that we give people a lot of the time is not enough, and we should go for the first 120-minute hour.
Well, tomorrow night, everybody should get their phones out, right? Get your phones out, people, and set your alarms for 6:50 p.m. All right, 6:50 p.m.
Right.
Because we will be here at 6:50 p.m. If you're watching us on YouTube, perfect time to hit that notification bell and to subscribe, because tomorrow night is the first leaders debate. And assuming we have the technology, which we think we do, we will be live streaming it and watching it with you and commenting on it. And during the ad break, possibly open up Discord to give you guys a chance to call in, and tell us what you think about it. So 10 to 7 tomorrow night. 10 to 7 tomorrow night is when we want to have you guys jumping in with us, and we'll tell you tomorrow night if we're going to be doing anything after that. Like, I'm not actually sure how long the leaders debate is. I'm assuming it's 60 minutes, which means 7 till 8, which means then I work my ass off 8 till 9 getting some highlights, and then 9 o'clock we come back again and we just dissect, or else we might just dissect straight away afterwards. We'll play that a bit by ear tomorrow night. So get your phones out, set your timers for 6:50 p.m. or 6:45 p.m. tomorrow night. Come and join us so we can all talk and watch the debate together. And also, as I said, if you hit the notification bell on whatever social media you're watching us on or on YouTube, then you'll know when we're live, so you'll see us popping up there, and subscribe along the way as well. So heaps to get into tonight. In fact, there's more to get into than we've even publicised getting into. But before we do that, we want to say a huge thanks to all our patrons. We're back to talking to you lovely patron people and trying to get some more patrons on board. NZ Doom and BB have joined us in the last week or so. So kia ora to you, whānau, for coming on board coffee runner status for our patrons. We've also had a producer move on, which is not a bad thing. A lovely producer with us for 12 months. So 12 months, that's $600 that they've donated as part of our patrons on the way through. But it does mean, look, there's a lovely space there that it could be you. It could be you as a producer status on patreon.com/big hairy news. Patreon.com/big hairy news. And this weekend we will be having a meetup. Now it's a virtual meetup, although from the sounds of it, 90% of the people watching are in Dunedin. That's what it feels like, doesn't it, Joey? Maybe? Maybe not. Maybe not.
Oh, I don't know about that.
But we'll be doing a meetup this weekend, a virtual meetup. So if you're a patron, anyone who's on board can get involved in that meetup, and we'll do that on Saturday morning. Patreon.com/big hairy news. So Chewy, I'm ready to frickin' go, bro. Shall we rip into it? Is there anything we want to start with to let people know before we go? Hit the ground running.
Okay, so this is what I've worked out, right? A lot of these right-wing politicians, right?
Yeah.
They're fucking mental.
Oh, really?
On telling people that they're mental on like talk shows and stuff.
Yeah.
Have you seen this, Pat? Have you seen this show, the Q&A, where they go on and they just show their entire ass?
I think the problem is they thought it was QAnon, but it's not. It's Q&A. And they got confused. Yeah. So we've got a couple of conversations coming up tonight. We've got Luxon on Newshub, and Rebecca did an amazing job. And I don't know Rebecca personally, but she's a mum, because the time she goes, Christopher, you're just like, mum tone. Like, honestly, Christopher. It's beautiful. And then also Jack Tame with David Seymour in there as well. Also, we're going to talk Posie Parker tonight. Had some fun on Twitter over the weekend. I didn't tag you in, Chewy. I thought I'd give you a weekend off. But I had some fun on Twitter over the weekend. My Twitter went a bit bananas. And I don't normally feed the trolls, but it's a little bit like I had some time on Sunday afternoon, so I had a bit of a play, and it was kind of fun. Posie Parker's made an announcement that she's not coming to New Zealand now for the upcoming trial. No. I know. And everyone said,
not enough grifting money in the grifting pot for her airfares.
But we'll have a look at that. Also, we'll go through the actual conversations I was having over the weekend just to let people know it was kind of fun. All right, let's get into this, shall we? One of the stories from tonight is talking about both political parties having trouble with their candidates, both political parties, both the major political parties, and the histories that they had. That's all we're going to talk about when it comes to this story. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but this is from tonight, looking at someone from National and someone from Labour getting a bit caught out with things that they've said in the past.
But Christopher Luxon spent a lot of his time today talking about his candidate for Hamilton East, Ryan Hamilton.
He was wrong. He subsequently apologised for those remarks, and those comments are utterly unacceptable, and they are wrong. That's completely inappropriate. And that's it's inappropriate. And
it's quite a good edit from TVNZ because isn't everyone going, "Oh, what's he done? What's he done? What's he done? We don't actually know yet. What's he done?"
It's wrong.
It seems Ryan Hamilton's no fan of fluoride, posting his views on social media.
It's not actually that big a deal. This, I know there's more to him than just this, but anyway.
National knew this when they selected.
Although the racial undertones of the comment to me are more so than the fluoride thing.
Yep.
The poverty issue is redundant. Most lower socioeconomic fill their tap water with raro, so pull the other one. That feels like there is a race element to it. Maybe that's just me, but that's
100%.
how it feels. Okay. All right, fair enough.
Him, but say he's changed his mind.
Oh, that's good.
His views as the National Party has come out
reformed.
very clearly and said that very strongly, that actually fluoridation in water is important.
Generally speaking, I haven't found conspiracy theorists are that willing to change their views.
So you have to be careful though, Mr. Hipkins, because if then within your own party you get something thrown back at you, how do you respond?
Calling him a conspiracy theorist.
Well, people who buy into the anti-vax, anti-fluoride movement.
Like anti-vaccine, is that all vaccines, or are you just talking about COVID when people are anti-vaccine? You sometimes got to be careful. Sometimes your words can come back to bite you a little bit, Mr. Hipkins, just a little bit.
Really tend to be.
Speaking of anti-vax, Labour list candidate Deborah Rhodes believes the HPV vaccine is big pharma poison that makes boys and girls sterile.
Happy to look at that. I don't believe that to be true.
Labour issued a statement on behalf of Deborah Rhodes this afternoon.
Hang on behalf of, but remember, anti-vaxxers don't tend to change their mind, Mr. Hipkins. You see how sometimes words can cause trouble and come back and get you?
Saying she no longer believes the HPV vaccine is poison.
So hang on. Let's be fair. So the national candidate said they don't believe that anymore, and the response was conspiracy theorists don't change their spots. The Labour Party candidate was an anti-vaxxer, and the Labour Party response to that is, but she's changed her mind. Come on, you got to be fair both ways, people.
That is so
Now, apparently, she
shithouse.
thinks it's safe and effective.
There you go. So that's one of the little stories, which is kind of hilarious. And this is one of the things you got to be careful of. It's actually reflected a little bit in a bunch of the Twitter conversations over the weekend because what people say can be used against them, right? What people say and what they believe can be used against them. But as can the opposite when people don't say things. Like I've had a lot of people in my Twitter feed over this weekend going, so you think Parker Posie, whatever her name is a Nazi? And I'm like, okay, please show your working, cite your evidence. Where have I said that? I said there might be lots of people who do believe that, but just show me where I've said that. And the answer is nothing, because I didn't actually say she was a Nazi. Now, whether she is or isn't, whether you agree or don't, I don't care. But all I'm saying is my tweet didn't say that. So likewise, your words can come back to haunt you, but people can also try and imply what you have said and try and get that to come back and haunt you. But either way, when Hipkins says, anti-vaxxers don't change their spots, Chewy, and then you have an anti-vaxxer in your group as well, what do you do next?
I'll tell you what you do.
Yeah.
Actually,
She's
Rob will tell
70
you.
something on the list, just strike her from the list and be done with it. Yeah, fair enough. The other thing
Cut
is,
her loose.
there's two kinds of anti-vaxxers, it seems. There's the religious right-wing fundamentalist, and then there's like the hippie health movement. I spoke to one of my other podcasts, I spoke to a kind of a researcher of the health guru people in California, and they were very, very much anti-vax. So there seems to be these two markets. And so you can be on the left and be like that, but what you find is those that are on the far right are much more likely to be it. The other thing is I wonder if she's got a religious connotation as well, because from knowing that evangelical world or that religious world, they think of the HPV vaccine as just a way that girls can go and root as much as they want now. And they can't do that because the Lord says, because the HPV vaccine stops people from getting cervical cancer. One of the causes they get cervical cancer is lots of sex, promiscuity, as they would say. So in other words, now there's no punishment for lots of sex. That means automatically girls are going to go and have lots of sex. That's pretty prevalent within the religious world. So I wouldn't be surprised if she had a religious connotation to that. Although I think she had the word fuck in one of those things, so maybe not.
I love that, right? Okay, so if that's her angle, right, that if you have promiscuous premarital sex, one of the risks are you get cervical cancer fucking 30 years later.
Yeah.
Like, what a shit punishment that is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah. As for this Hamilton guy, and it's hilarious that he's a candidate for Hamilton that's called Hamilton. Like, and this is our constant criticism with the news media and that sort of thing. Put it in context. Put that guy in context. It's not just fluoride.
Yeah, there we go.
He has been anti-mandate. He got into politics running against his own mother over the issue of the legalization of prostitution.
Oh, God.
He was part of Destiny Church at the time.
There you go.
He's not part of Destiny now. He's part of another evangelical church. But this shows another couple of issues that National have. Yet another completely off the chain evangelical in their, and he's what, 11 on their list or something like that.
Something
he's
like
up
that.
there, isn't he? So yet another evangelical that's part of National, with links to Destiny Church or churches like it, who's got some really fundamentally cooked views. Like being anti-fluoride, that was one of the consistent like conspiracy theory type things before we got into COVID.
Yeah.
And I think as recently as June this year, there was a council meeting in Hamilton where several of his fellow councillors got presented with writs of execution, and a citizen's arrest was attempted. Every other councillor left at that point, apart from him, and then he took the stage and kind of went, hey, this isn't how you do it, but, I can understand where you're coming from. Now, for National to say, oh, well, we knew about the fluoride thing, and then not acknowledge any of the other stuff.
Yeah.
It's that same thing we've been saying, right? Is it incompetence that you can't vet your candidates properly and you can't black hat these guys and go, well, this is going to cause us problems? Or is it willful? And this is the system is working as intended. These are the guys that we want to attract. Just absolute, just cookers.
Hamilton for Hamilton. Yeah. And he could do it while he's singing a song from Hamilton. Perhaps that could be his way in there. All right, next story, super quick, actually story from last night, but I think it's really interesting, and that is the ACT campaign launch, right? So let's have a look at that, because the one part we're going to look at is actually, because it's all pretty much, no policy came out. They hired the fucking Civic in Auckland. So when you talk about a war chest, they hired the Civic in Auckland. For those of you guys who don't know Auckland, premier sort of theatre. Speaking of Hamilton, if it comes, this will probably be where it is. That's actually the theatre. I used to go to it as a kid, and you loved it because the ceiling was all stars, and the lines at the front have glowing eyes, like real 1900s kind of theatre. Gorgeous, gorgeous building. In fact, I went there when I was up for Dad's funeral. We went and saw Kinky Boots there, the stage show. And they hired it out for their conference. So, yeah, war chest. So anyway, one of the big stories was, speaking of Destiny Church, the Vision New Zealand candidate having another crack. And I guess you got to give credit where credit's due. At least he's a equal opportunities, protester.
That's the one that. Well, I could give two ticks to him. Like, if he was just an independent and he was just going, more people need to pay attention to South Auckland, I'd be like, yeah, brother, go for it.
Yeah,
absolutely, 100%. But then it's those links to Destiny and just being a knob. It's really damaging to that cause.
So the thing that's been most interesting about this kind of interruption is not necessarily the interruption. This guy's obviously going to do this. Two things. One is, how the fuck did he get in? Like, don't they have people doing security? In fact, Katie Bradford says how secure it was. They had their bag searched, which she says she's never literally had anything ever, but he could just walk in, obviously. And the second, though, you talk about ACT being the party of Trump, or the Trumpian party in New Zealand, is the way that the audience then acted towards the press who were there covering this guy interrupting them. Let's have a look.
In a haze of dry ice, David Seymour appeared on stage, prepped
Sorry,
for
can
a
you pause that,
glitzy launch.
please, Pat?
Yes.
That was the worst gender reveal I have ever seen.
It was pink, so we now know. There we go. All sorted out.
Within minutes, a now familiar face was disrupting his
Like,
speech.
how did he get in?
The Vision's NZ candidate has also interrupted campaign events by Chris Hipkins and Christopher Luxon. Chaos ensued, with Seymour and party faithful attempting to drown out the serial heckler for over 10 minutes.
Value for value and getting strong.
And remember, this is the heckler who at Otara flea markets, Hipkins said, no, protest is a part of it. And then in Botany over the fence, most people were like, oh, it's kind of funny, but, maybe time to let people hear what the candidates want to say. And now he's doing it again at a campaign launch, which I guess is different again, because this is not really so much for the public, more for the party. But as I said, how did he get into it? That's one of the things.
But it wasn't just the protesters targeted. Ex-supporters turned on the media, yelling abuse, pushing, and even hitting a camera operator with signs.
Not really.
Security eventually removed 4 people. Hundreds of supporters here at this opulent theatre weren't going to let those protesters get in the way of their support for David Seymour and his message. The ex-leader described the actions of demonstrators as deplorable, but he flat out refused
deplorable. That line didn't work for Hillary Clinton, Mr. Seymour.
to take any responsibility for creating anger and divisions with his anti-co-governance rhetoric, despite that and racial division being key topics at the launch.
Really not think that your debate around co-governance and issues stokes some of this animosity?
Not at all. The debate is there. People don't like government policies that divide them by race.
But dividing them by all sorts of other things is just hunky-dory. I wanted to show one other thing, Chewy, because normally I don't show the commentary from the journalists after, but because Katie was there, she adds a perspective to the story about how it kind of felt and how it felt different. So let's just get this, and then we'll have a chat, and then we'll move on.
Busy looking day for you, Katie. Can you give us more details of what happened this afternoon?
Kia ora. We've now seen this small group of protesters at a number of campaign events. Not unusual given what's been going on in the country. What was different here today was the reaction of ACT's supporters. They really turned this event into something else. Don't forget that media are invited by political parties to these events. They want us there. They want us at campaign launches. They want us following them around every single day while they're out there on the campaign trail, because they of course want to feature it. They want voters to see it. To be pushed around and yelled at while we are doing our job, David Seymour himself said today it was unacceptable. He apologised for it on behalf of his supporters.
Good on him.
He said if anyone took that too far, he would like to see action taken against them and kicked out of the party for it. This launch, obviously wasn't quite what he wanted.
So that was so that's one of the big differences, Chewy, was how the people in the audience acted, which is, I don't know if it says anything, but turning on the media because a protester was there, and like I said before, it has that kind of Trumpian vibe to it, all the evil media who are going to portray this in a certain way. But so that was actually from yesterday, but I did want to acknowledge it tonight. Yeah,
look, it's amazing when you sort of you've attracted people, right? You've attracted a certain type of people by the way that you're talking. And you seem shocked that they act crazy when all you've done is put out pro-crazy policies for your pro-crazy party. And then you go, oh, well, we didn't want that. And saying that, all the stories that I'd seen before, that clip said, the cameraman was punched or hit.
Yeah, it was tap.
And then I saw it and I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Like that's a bit of a have. But yeah, it's interesting to hear the vibe of people's attitude towards invited media is just crazy.
It probably comes from that stem of
changed.
It's the stem. It stems from that distrust. And where does that distrust stem from? It completely stems from Trump. He's the one that's pointed at the media, and that's then flowed on to people on the far right all around the world, that the media is the enemy of kind of truth. And that's been flowed in and kind of vocalised by people like Sean Plunkett, questioning people's journalistic ability because they get paid by the government, because it's a government grant, so that makes it null and void. And that has all contributed to then, I don't know, when something embarrassing happens at a launch, the people turn on the media because they don't want that covered, or they don't trust that they're going to report it as it's actually happening. And it's all just an ugly cycle. And it doesn't seem to happen on the other side. Like this happened to what didn't happen for National either. So even on the right, it's the far right where you see this kind of angst towards the media of distrust.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
all right.
Absolutely.
Hey, let's go. Should we go see Mama Rachel talking to Mr. So you're going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, before we do this, we have had a request from the chat.
Yep, what's that? Oh, something about a scooter? I don't know what this is.
You haven't seen this?
I don't think so. What are we watching?
Let's put on the sound.
Who dat? Who dat? Oh my gosh. Oh.
And again. Yeah.
Why do they move the camera away? Why don't they get it falling?
Anyway,
I hadn't seen that. Right.
That's our little intermission.
Newshub Nation had Christopher Luxon in the weekend. It did, as you would expect, it did not go that well. However, I am now firmly of the opinion that it doesn't really matter if it doesn't go that well. They're not seeing a decrease in the polls. I actually almost wish they'd just come out and say we got the numbers wrong. I don't think it would hurt them. I really don't think it would hurt them in the polls, rather than the silly game they're playing. So let's have a look at a little bit of, I've got quite a few clips. I might drop one or two of them, but some of them are very, very short. A couple of meaty ones to start off with. And there's a great line in here talking about the 32-page document, which I actually have sitting right here. And it gets referred to by the host as marketing, not modelling. Beautiful line, would look great on a T-shirt. Here we go. Listen, I also like the sigh right at the start. That's one of my favourite bits, so I've left it in.
You will be able to fund it completely. And if you can't...
They shouldn't go there. It should start here. Here we go.
Okay, we're going to talk a lot now about tax.
Oh, great.
So you talked a lot about tax this week. But it's been an up and down week for you. Your poll numbers have been really good. But you've also struggled to stack up your tax plan. There have been big questions from a lot of places about your foreign buyer tax. So are there any conditions that would make you rethink your tax cut policy?
No, absolutely not. By virtue of the way that we said we would...
So even that, like I'm not going to get too much into this because it will take us too long, but are there any conditions you would question it? No. I mean, the reason that it frustrates me about all politicians is we've just been through a 3-year cycle where we had a pandemic, where the conditions changed so much that everything had to change. For a politician to go, there is no chance ever that I'm ever going to change my mind on this. It's actually... I can, and this is, they all do it, right? So this is not about Mr. Luxon. They all do it. I actually kind of find it dishonest because, of course, if something happened, you would have to reassess it. It's okay to say, you know, this is our plan moving forward. We've seen the books, we can do it. If there was a national pandemic or a global pandemic and World War III or something, things might have to change, but that's certainly, unless it's a quote unquote act of God, Luxon better not say that, it'll be interpreted, but you know, like an act of God might change it, but other than that, this is the plan moving forward. Just be honest. You know, because if you're not and something does change, then this clip's going to get brought up time and time and time again. You said it wasn't going to change and it has. So just be real and be honest.
Because he's bad at this,
design it a long time ago. We said always that we would make
well,
sure
they
we
all
had
do
a
it,
fully
though.
self-funded tax plan. And I just put it into a little bit of perspective.
Well, we can put it into context in a second, but it feels like you're entrenched here in this position. You are out there dying every day in a ditch over this tax plan when there are questions over the legitimacy of the foreign buyer tax. Why won't you just release the numbers and show people the money?
Well, we've released 32 pages of our approach and our costings. We've
great.
Released a
legal
good. Report
that's 32
summarising
pages.
With, you know, the
that's
legal
a lot
view.
of pages.
And we've also released Castalia's independent economic review of our numbers. So, you know, what I'd just say to you is, yeah, the foreign buyer tax is a piece of actually how we fund our tax relief. We've done this on a very conservative, very prudent basis on all aspects of it. And importantly, we're delivering tax relief to working New Zealanders. That's what they care about.
This is the 32-page document that you're talking about, isn't it? This Christopher, this is a brochure. It's full of pictures of you.
I think that's unfair. There's quite a lot of tables in the back there, Rebecca.
Well, there's also some pictures of you having a cup of tea. There's pictures of you cuddling a baby. This is not a financial document, a big financial disclosure document. This is a brochure.
No, that's a policy document that lays out in detail in appendices actually some of our costings and how we're approaching it. We've been very transparent about it. And we actually, I think I'm very proud of that because...
It's marketing, it's not modelling. This is marketing.
Great line.
It's called a policy document. That's what we do in politics. We prepare policy so that actually...
I do like it as well. That's what we do in politics from someone who's never been in politics. Like, I mean, I'm not jabbing too much, but if someone like Hipkins said that, you'd kind of go, well, you've been around, you know what they do. But this guy's been here 3 minutes. This is what we do in politics. Is it? Are you sure? You know, it's like going into a new job. This is how we do things at Air New Zealand after you've been there 5 minutes. Are you sure? Do you know? Completely clear on that? I don't know.
Do you want to know another
jump
thing?
online? See.
Say again.
Do you want to know another thing about the 32-page document?
Please.
It's actually 29 pages.
Well, I can look at that because I've got it here, which we'll look at afterwards. Let's keep going.
Yeah, and see how well they're going to do.
But you're saying that this is, you've put about a 32-page report which goes through all of the financial details. You could not present this in any other environment except for politics and have people take you seriously. You couldn't list on the NZX with this. They wouldn't allow you.
I just put it to you. I think it's a very comprehensive policy document.
But it's not a financial document.
No, but I would challenge you to actually say the same thing if you want to investigate how the government's
what
proposing
about,
to take
what
GS
about,
to fruit and vegetables.
What about you're here talking about your policies, Mr. Luxon? What about
fuel tax and excise tax?
Let's take a look here at your own example with the foreign buyer tax. This is Rachel. She is a tech entrepreneur. She is from San Francisco. She's successfully applied for an entrepreneur work visa so she can start a business in New Zealand. She wants to buy a $3 million apartment in Auckland to live in, but she's not a resident, so she can't buy a home. Under your plan, you say that she will pay 15% of foreign buyer tax and she'll be able to buy an apartment. How many Rachels do you need to make your foreign buyer tax work?
Well, let's go through it, right? So,
how many Rachels do you need?
Let me step you through it. So before the foreign buyer ban was in place, there was 4,000 houses that were sold to foreigners in New Zealand. What we're saying is we think it will be less than half, about 1,700 houses is what our plan's about. What we're saying is, look, you know, we actually want some...
I like it how because I did the numbers, remember? I like it how we go 16 to 1,700 at 1,725. That's how many houses at $2.9 million. 1,725.
Someone like her to actually come to New Zealand and actually invest in New Zealand, partner with New Zealand firms, help them get better, help them to expand and grow.
So how many
Rachels?
Rachels do you need?
Well, as we said, we're planned on selling 1,600 to 1,700 houses in our assumptions.
So you need 16 to
$2.9 million
1,700 Rachels.
Yeah.
So how many Rachels entered the country under that visa this year?
Again, what I'd say to you
I can tell you. It's 12.
Well, what I'd say to you is there's other visas and other opportunities for foreigners to come to New Zealand.
But this is what you're putting in your document that you're selling to New Zealanders.
Yes, but what...
There you go. There's part one, Chewy. It was 12.
But hang on, Pat. Isn't this the anchor policy that's going to self-fund their tax cuts?
Well, but look, let's have a look. This is the document, right? And you said it was 29 pages.
Pulling that out of their ass.
I'm gonna just check the 29 page thing. Let's go to the end. I wonder if that doesn't include the covers. 28. Yeah, look, 28. It was absolutely 29. The other thing about all their documents and all their stats and all their figures, when it talks about this costing, right? This is all the information where they say we've got it. Well, this is it. So of the 29 page document, they have 2 paragraphs as to how they're going to cost this policy. Nothing else in it.
Wow.
It talks about what it is, like there's a foreign buyers tax. It talks about this. It talks about all the foreign buyers tax, gives the example that Rebecca just mentioned. And then when it says, how are you going to do this? It's 2 paragraphs. So the costings in their document, which it keeps talking about as 32 pages when it's only 29, the costings are actually 2 paragraphs of that. So what would that be? About 10 lines, 10 words a line. So 30, say 60 words. So of the 29 page document, 60-ish words actually explain their costings for the foreign buyers tax, Chewy.
This is the thing.
But it's the vibe,
because it's I laugh because it's fucking stupid, right?
Yeah.
But then, and this is for the national cheerleader in the chat at the moment, right?
Oh, we've got one. Yeah.
You should be angry about this too, my dude. As much as you might dislike Labour and go, yay, Team Blue, your team is phoning it in.
Yeah.
If this is the level of prep that they're bringing into convincing people to vote for them, and it's so tissue thin that it's a 29-page, 32-page document with 2 paragraphs explaining that this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
That every economist, every tax expert, bar one, is saying that this will not work. That there is a barrage of media who are doing their job to make sure that the electorate gets the answers they need to decide this is the team that is going to be best for the country, and all they're getting back is, no, we don't need to show you shit, we're solid. Then you should be angry, because that's the disrespect that's being shown to you. They know you're going to vote for them no matter what.
Yeah,
they don't have to show you shit. It's not for you. You should be just as angry as the rest of us, because we, all of us, everyone in this country, deserves better from our leaders. And you're going to say, hey, look, we're Labour shills. I'm saying that to Labour as well. Because they're phoning it in just as fucking much.
We've already done that twice in today's show. We've already done that twice in today's show. Look, let me also say this. I welcome people from the other side. In fact, I'd love to have more people from the other side watching this. Just show us where we're wrong. Show Rachel where she's wrong. Show our analysis of that interview as to where it's wrong. We've done the numbers. 1725 at $2.9 million gets them the $5 billion they need. Not 16 to 1700, 1725. If they average $2.9 million, if they average $2 million, it's a fuck ton more. However, we're gonna get to more about that as we go through. But you go. What was that, Joey?
Just the one thing. Remember that $2.9 million number had to be pulled out of Nicola Willis.
Yeah.
Because remember, it was around $2 million. No, it's around $3 million, because it's 2.9 million. That's closer.
Yeah.
So, they do not want to tell us this, because the details, everything falls apart.
Well, you talk about numbers basically there, Chewy. So let's go back to the interview and have our interviewer talk to Mr. Luxon about his numbers.
A little bit more here. You've based them on numbers back in 2018, sales in 2018 of 4,000 homes, but you don't know how many of those were over $2 million, how many of those sales were over $2 million, do you?
Well, clearly the market has moved since 2018,
but you don't
because
know
unfortunately in this government they've failed so badly on housing. House prices are up over
The other thing, supporters of Luxon, if your response every time to a question is, but what about Labour? Then you have nothing. We see that on Twitter quite a lot. But Labour, it's like, well, actually, this is Christopher Luxon's interview to explain to people like me, who haven't decided where we're going to vote yet, although most of you will guess what side of politics I will. But people like me and further to the right than me, who they're going to vote for. And if you've got this flagship policy that you think will get your votes, and your best defence of your policy is, but what about Labour? Then that says quite a bit about how terrible this policy is. So that's what he's going to go into now, but Rebecca does well and presses him on his numbers.
$230,000, right?
You don't know how many were over $2 million.
No, but what I can say to you is 4,000 houses sold to foreigners.
Yes.
We've been very conservative, taking less than half of them into our assumption, into our model. We're also acknowledging there's a huge amount of pent-up demand by virtue of the bright line test having been there, and also the ban being in place.
You need 40% of those 4,000 buyers, excluding Australians and Singaporeans, to buy houses over $2 million.
Just remember, excluding Australians, Singaporeans, and probably Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Canadian, American, Mexican, British, UK as well. Probably excluding all of those places as well.
We're selling houses to the Saudis.
Yep.
And the Russian.
And there's 100,000 homes here in New Zealand.
No, there was 4,000 sold.
No, but that's to all foreigners before the ban.
Yes.
And just remember today,
and we don't know
house prices have moved on. Separately, we also now have 100,000 homes worth over $2 million in New Zealand. And we've had a ban in place. We've actually had a bright line test in place. Those things have been impediments to demand. And so I'm very confident that we will be able to raise 740.
And this is the other thing, from wherever you land on the political spectrum. Someone telling you, I know this is going to work, I'm very confident, without showing you their workings should raise questions. Like, I don't want to have to trust anyone. I want to see. Like, I want to read your policies and I want to see it. I don't know you. I don't know you. All politicians are dirtbags on some levels. They all do say one thing and do another. I'm not going to trust you. I want to see. I'm very comfortable as trust me. No, I'm not going to trust you. I want to see the information so I can then know that what you're saying is the truth. I'm not going to trust you. I'm not going to trust any of you. But I'm not going to trust you, Mr. Luxon, who for some reason is steadfast refusing to release the data, which makes you very confident, but doesn't give us any information.
$1 million from the foreign buyers, and we're going to give it to lower middle income New Zealanders.
Competence is not competence, Christopher, and that is what looks to be lacking here.
I disagree.
So you think confidence is competence?
No, I'm confident and competent. I understand the economy, I understand numbers, and I understand how it works.
Why?
Well,
the
why
reality
does
is
he,
there will be a range
why does
of
he know the economy?
economists that have a
background?
different range of opinions.
Well,
We've had a range of economists in New Zealand, just for example, that didn't actually forecast that we'd be in recession.
Christopher, there are not a range of opinions on this. There are tax experts, economists, property experts who all say that these numbers are bogus. And there's you and Castalia who say they're not.
And so within the economists...
That is not a range of opinions. That is everyone else and you.
Well, there you go. Now, here's a little clip for everybody. If you didn't see Friday night's show, we had a bit of a special. The questions that are getting asked in here are around why are you not showing us the numbers? Economist Sam Warburton is a left-wing economist, true, but he did a report with a right-wing economist, Michael Riddell, and they released it last week as to the massive hole in this plan. I asked Sam Warburton why he thought, and we can't know for sure, but why he thought the likely scenario was that National would not release their numbers. This is what he said. Do you have any perspective on why you think National won't release their full modelling? I know they don't have to release it, but it seems all the questions and queries that are out there at the moment could possibly be solved if they did release it. And if they're so confident in their numbers, do you have any inkling as to why they just ardently refuse to release that modelling?
Yeah, there's a couple of possibilities. The first is that the media was putting a lot of pressure on National to release its tax
so they
policy.
rushed it.
And you can imagine that, inside the National Party, someone would have said, okay, we need to set a deadline. Like, this is the drop-dead date for getting something out. And the analysis, while the method is pretty straightforward, it was tricky to put everything together. It was really, really tricky. It took a lot of hours in our weekends and evenings to get this done. And so you can imagine, like what we experienced, we got to a point of exhaustion. And if you had a deadline, you would have been quickly running out of time. And so it's quite possible that we see what's quite a good method in there, that they might have got to the point of exhausting that good method and then getting to the point where you're getting into a little bit more speculative assumptions, and just doing a guesstimate. And having that guesstimate be way wrong. And so, you don't want to be releasing documents that show you're doing a pretty decent job for part of it and then just completely stuffing it up with one big wrong number in there. The alternative...
So you're saying, for clarity, that there's a chance that they don't want to release their modelling because they realise they've fudged a few things in their modelling.
Yeah. They took a stab. It might have even been an honest stab. But then the other possibility is, they did the modelling and then they saw the revenue results and they saw it was way less than what they needed.
I think that'll do us. We get the gist. And I've just realised I'm wearing exactly the same clothes. I'm a dirty, filthy mongrel. That's why I was trying to copy myself.
If anyone had on their normal bingo cards that I told everybody about but didn't include Pat in, that's Patception. It happens every now and then. It's the same Pat but from the past. Patception.
So basically they fudged their numbers because they had to rush something out, or they're lying. That was his opinion. I've obviously paraphrased, but that was his opinion as to why they won't release their numbers, Chewy. Now we've got another 5 or 6 clips to go. The rest of the clips are only like 40 to 70 seconds, so we can whip through them, but I do want to show as many as we can. What are your thoughts?
I'm still furious. This is the party of the economy and the party of numbers. They can't seem to get single fucking one right.
Another great question. The conversation went on. What impact does National think that, removing the bright line and giving interest free for whatever they're called, landlords will do on house prices? What modelling have they done and what impact will it have? That was the next part of the conversation these guys had.
What impact will reducing the Bright Line test, interest deductibility and pouring 6,800 foreign buyers into the housing market have on residential prices?
Well, what I'd say to you, the real issue that drives residential prices is a lack of supply.
I'm asking you what effect your policies will have.
I don't think that'll have any particular effect on
pricing.
pricing.
Do you know?
I'd say to you,
no
let me
effect.
explain
Because
why.
your finance minister doesn't know.
No, but let me explain to you why. Because essentially you've got to understand the housing market in New Zealand, right?
People do understand the housing market, but I'm asking what impact your policies will have on it.
Yeah, so let me explain that to you. What we're saying is we have major problems in the home ownership part of our market, right? We don't have enough supply of houses. We've got good policies about housing for growth, about how we unlock that. We have a major lack of supply in our rental property market as well. And we have a major lack of supply in social housing and state housing. So lack of supply is the single biggest determinant that will determine what happens with house prices going forward in New Zealand.
There we go. That's that part of the conversation. Now, I thought what was really interesting to show as well. You are. And this is also interesting. So they were like asking what impact would it had. This is from the debate on Thursday night. In Queenstown ASB Great Debate, the crowd of 400 got the fireworks of insults and one-liners they'd come for. The biggest revelation of the night, according to Newsroom, came when moderator TVNZ's Jack Tame asked Nicola Willis what reversing interest deductibility rules and reducing the Bright Line test to 2 years would do to the house prices. I don't know what it would do to house prices, Willis told the crowd, some of whom were startled by the blunt nature of her answer. She doesn't know, he doesn't know, because on some level, they're doing this on the fly, Chewy.
That's the presumptive finance minister, if we can believe the polls. Absolutely having no idea what one of the biggest drivers of our economy, messing around with that, what that will do.
Yeah.
She doesn't understand that removing the Bright Line test will turn houses into assets to flip for profit once again.
Yep, absolutely.
People buy old houses, do them up, increase the value. They're not like the Bright Line only affects people that are selling their homes quickly in less than 2 years. That's enough time to do up a house and flip it.
Yeah.
It exclude, like, if they're talking about supply being our biggest issue, why is there not a policy that encourages people to do new builds? Why is there not a policy opening up inner city areas for higher density? Why aren't we looking at that rather than pouring 6,500 uber wealthy people into the country? They're not building houses; they're going to buy something off the shelf.
Something I sent out today, and I think I'm going to address it in a later clip on Twitter, is that they're saying 6,500 buyers. Who says? Who says it's not going to be 20,000? Because at no point have I read in any of their documents there is a minimum number of houses they can buy, and there is a maximum number of buyers that can come into the country. He said there's 100,000 houses in New Zealand at the moment worth over $2 million. I'm being silly here, but what if every one of them was bought by an international buyer? There's nothing to say that an international buyer can't come in and buy 30 houses. There's nothing to say that in their bill, in their policy. There's nothing to say that they can't come in and they can't bank a property house, or, buy all those 3-bedroom houses in Auckland or in Queenstown or whatever that are basically just family houses as rentals, build up a literal land bank of properties, rent them all out, let them go for it, then come and retire to New Zealand in 20 years' time in their $20 million house, owning 40, 50, 60 rental properties that New Zealanders then can't buy. Now, on that, this is my segue. This is exactly the conversation that they then get into, talking a little bit about, flip it back over, New Zealand buyers now having to compete with international buyers. Let's have a listen.
What I've said to you is every aspect of our tax plan has been checked, and there are revenue raises in other areas. There are also prioritised savings.
That was the wrong clip. I just did a big setup to. And it was the wrong
That's
clip.
such a good segue.
It was a good bloody segue. There it is, 11:48. Blah, 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 competing with international buyers.
But a $2 million house here in Auckland, that's a 3-bedroom house in Mount Albert. And families, these are aspirational homes for Kiwis, and you want to pour foreign buyers into that part of the market. And what you're trying to tell me is that it's not going to push up prices or price out Kiwis.
We have 100,000 homes in New Zealand worth more than $2 million.
Something else that's never said is there might be 100,000 homes worth more than $2 million, but how many are on the market at any one time? because it's not about having 100,000 homes. It's about how many are on the market that are then going to be competed for.
Example in Mount Albert.
1,600 homes is what we're talking about to make our plan work.
But you're pouring it into a part of the market that is aspirational and important to Kiwi families.
And what's important to Kiwi families, they also get tax relief because they're doing it incredibly tough with rising mortgage rates, high level
But you
of
could be robbing from Peter to pay Paul here because you're going to give them $25 a week in tax relief and price them out of the housing market.
No, I'm actually taking it from Pedro to pay Paul because I'm taking it from foreign buyers. And I'm saying if you want to purchase a house here in New Zealand, you will pay a 15% tax. And that money is going straight to hardworking Kiwis who deserve a tax break.
I'm saying that you might be giving Kiwi families $25 a week, but you're taking away their ability to move into those homes at the $2 million mark, which here in Auckland is a family home.
Yeah, and I think when you've got 100,000 houses across the whole of this country worth more
But how many are for sale at any one time?
than $2 million, and we're talking about selling 1,600 of them potentially to foreigners. Actually,
Every
that's
year
quite digestible.
For 4 years.
Yeah.
So that is many more than 1,600.
That's 1,600 times 4, to be quite precise. It's actually 1,725 times 4. I don't know why they keep saying now. See, they've just sold this narrative all of a sudden at 1,600. I don't know why that's better than 1,725, but that's what it is. Right. So, yes, I've done the preamble to that, was my rant afterwards, is the idea of getting priced out of the marketplace. And that will happen. And as lots of people have already said, $1.8 million houses, $1.9 million houses, people are just going to go, well, let's make them 2.1 because then that makes them accessible to international buyers. And I might get a couple of $100,000 more. 1.7 might get pushed up to 2. Let's see if we can get some international buyers. And you know what? If you've got a house sitting at $2 million, you're not going to budge because all of a sudden your pool of buyers goes from, the 20 New Zealanders looking at it to the 20 New Zealanders and the 200 internationals as you're looking at it. I've got a tweet that I didn't bring it up, actually. I could go and find it. I've got a tweet from someone today that says they know someone in Bailey's and they're getting information from China that Chinese residents are already sending money to New Zealand to start to get it ready to buy once National gets in. Like rumour, conjecture, don't know if it's true, can't claim it 100%. But it was a tweet that came out today, and I thought that's a particularly interesting thought. So Chewy, I think we'll leave it on this one more because this is a really good challenge, right? Because we base our information on evidence. Yeah, Rachel and Mr. Luxon talk about the tax in Toronto. Now she gets it a bit wrong, but I'll explain it to you because other places in the world do this, right? I'll play what they say first, and then I'll give you all the information which is actually worse than what they say because I don't know if she misquotes or she didn't quite know, but we'll pan it out for you. So let's have a look now. When Luxon goes on to say every part of our tax has been checked, and she goes on to talk about examples from around the world, and this is the next clip.
Where does the money come from?
Well, what I've said to you is every aspect of our tax plan has been checked, and there are revenue raises in other areas. There are also prioritised savings in government spending. And every single aspect of that has been done conservatively, prudently,
but these are just words.
And responsibly.
These are just words without actual evidence, facts to back it up. These are just words. This is marketing. This is hubris until you get elected.
I disagree. We've actually, I've explained to you that we've actually gone off and engaged somebody to actually interrogate our numbers, challenge our numbers.
But why aren't you worried then that everybody else says this is not going to work?
Yeah.
They looked at Toronto.
Yep.
In Toronto, which has the same 15% tax and a greater population than New Zealand, they came up with $250 million in this foreign buyer revenue.
Yes, well, we see these schemes working all around the world.
Working.
Okay,
so she just gave numbers that said in a bigger market they got a third the money, and Luxon's response is we see these working other places in the world.
Says this is not going to work. They looked at Toronto. In Toronto, which has the same 15% tax and a greater population than New Zealand, they came up with $250 million in this foreign buyer revenue.
Yes, well, we see these schemes working all around the world.
But that's not $750 million.
What's happening across Australia?
Did you look at Toronto?
We've looked at a number of markets across the world, and we see these things working incredibly well.
Okay, so let me just clear this all up. It's actually not the Toronto model. It does happen in Toronto, but it happens across all Ontario, which Toronto, I think, is the largest city from. So it's actually called the Non-Residential Speculation Tax Collected, or the NT, whatever it is, whatever that acronym is. And there's 15 million people in Ontario that come under this. So 3 times the population of New Zealand. 15 million people.
3 times the money, right?
Well, it's actually not quite that, Chewy, but it's not 15%. It's actually 20%. And it's on all homes. And a year ago, it was raised to 25%. So there's more people with more houses and a higher tax, right? So it's not quite like for like. They should be getting more. So in 2017, this goes from 2017 to 2022. These are all the numbers here. They raised between 156 million, and the biggest year they had was 200 million, 200.3 million, the Ontario total. So that's 15 million people with 20, that was 20, this the year would have been 20% on all properties made $200 million. And Luxon's response to that is, well, we see this working all over the world, Chewy.
That's heaps less numbers. That's loads less. And this is what I mean. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're supporting. Everyone should be angry with this. Yeah. Like, I see so many, like a little national cheerleader in the chat, that's just like, hey, yay team. No, they're playing you for fucking sucker because it's not about you. They don't give a shit about you. Unless you're donating to them, unless you're one of these rich overseas guys that's lining up to pay the kickback and buy his bolt hole here, they don't give a shit about you.
Not a shit.
They're going to fuck off so many more people with these policies than we even know at this point.
And remember, as our economist said, the reason they won't show their workings, in his opinion, who's just done the numbers, is they either fudge the numbers to get a result out quickly, or they're lying. He didn't use the word lying, it's my paraphrase, but they either fudge their numbers or they're straight up lying about their numbers. Yeah. And if you look at a place like Ontario, 3 times the population, which means not just 3 times the house availability, because it's all houses. It's not just houses over $2 million, it's all houses. So that might be 10 times the houses available, who knows? And they raised $200 million last year. And Luxon seems to think in New Zealand, right? What did I say? 5 times the size, 15 million? So 3 times. So 3 times smaller on what they describe as luxury houses. They're going to raise nearly 4 times as much money in tax when the interest that they're being charged, 15%, is actually less than what they charge in Ontario as well. It's like, come on. I mean, just let's just say now that National can say anything they want and still lead the polls. That's just what we're looking at now, is just the complete anti-left vote, no matter what. Because you can't look at this conversation and go, I believe Luxon. There is no one who would see these numbers and go, I believe National. You might do it out of irony, you might do it out of spite towards the left, but there's no one who's going to go, yes, we trust you and your numbers, unless you have some kind of mental disability from a motorbike accident. That'd be about the only way.
This is going to be great for Paula Bennett and all her real estate association mates. It's going to be absolutely great for Stephen Joyce, who's up to his dildo target in a housing development in Central Otago where all the homes are about $3 million. It's going to be great for these guys. This is National feathering their fucking nest. It's their retirement plan.
Yeah, and let me ask one more thing, and then we need to move on. Is when I was doing Talkback back in the day, there was a massive melee about a place called Crayfer Farms. Crayfer Farms was a farm sold to a Chinese company. Yep. And there was a massive... Have you read anywhere, Chewy, because I haven't, that now foreign nationals, once this goes, can come through? Remember, luxury properties over $2 million. Oh, so like a $30 million sheep station? That's fine? No overseas investment office? Okay. Like a massive dairy farm in Waikato? You know, you think about not houses, but think about lifestyle properties. Think about farms. I've seen no carve out this doesn't include farms. What about that? And then the thing about the overseas office, I supported the idea of Crayfer Farms. It was okay, and I'll tell you why. Because when that Chinese company then sold it, they couldn't sell it to another Chinese national. It had to go back through the overseas into the OIO. Is that what it's called? No, it's not. Anyway, the Overseas Investment Office. Yeah, the OIO. So they couldn't. We didn't lose the land. A company owned it, and then they couldn't just sell it off to more international buyers. If it was going to be an international buyer next time, it had to go back through the OIO. So there's nothing to say it wouldn't end up back in New Zealand hands at some stage. But now, if it's worth more than $2 million, they can buy it. I've seen no writings anywhere about restrictions. So let's say half of New Zealand's farms now belong to international companies. As far as I read it, under their act, under their policy, that's possible. They'll just pay tax.
Well, why in their, I don't know, 15 to 22 page, 32 page document, is the example not like, hi, I'm a South African born, American based tech entrepreneur and Bitcoin slinger. I would like to buy a mountain outside Wanaka to build my base on. I'm going to live in a tunnel because I've kicked off such a fucking race war because I bought a social media company that I need to run away now. So I want to buy an entire mountain, cover it in pine trees, and live out my artificially long life. I guess that's who we're pitching to. Why isn't that in the document?
I guess so. All right, we're moving on. We're going to be here till midnight. Mondays are always longer because there's lots to get through from the weekend. So this was my Twitter over the weekend. I put out a very simple tweet. And as you can see, it's up to 14,000 interactions. And I know that's not lots for lots of people, but for me, it's pretty big. Great protest chant in Dublin. Posie Parker, you can't hide. You have Nazis on your side. Very accurate, very clever. Also stops any debate about Nazi involvement like we saw at Melbourne, because whether Posie Parker agreed with their presence or not, they definitely were, quote unquote, on her side. Now, I think that's pretty cut and dry. But as you can see, with 116 comments and 37 retweets and, all sorts of bits and pieces, the conversation
then chum in the water there, Pat. The
conversation then flowed into things like, we all witnessed Albert Park, no Nazis there, so I had to put up the article where showing the Nazis at Albert Park. I had a bit of fun. Textbook, bearded, misogynist, woke bro, how so, show your workings. I had a bit of fun. Bob McCoskey, this isn't going well, or it is, highlights how overgeneralizing works. It went on and 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 on. Now, I just thought it was, and look, this is why I love it when people comment on who I am or who we are, I guess, Chewy, and they don't realize that I'm literally saying what a clever chant. Just like we said 3 weeks ago, no more labour pains, no more labour pains was a fucking clever chant. Like, it was a clever
Love a good chant.
A clever chant. And I thought, if you want to see the actual event, this was the chant that I saw on Twitter. You got Nazis on your side. You got Nazis on your side. And look, I actually tried to engage with some people. I know it's silly, Chewy, but the point being that, especially, let's just reference Melbourne. In Melbourne, the Nazi community came out to support the message that Posie Parker was sharing. That is someone who was on your side. It's completely fair. We've talked about this a lot. We've talked about the idea that you guys have to recognize, that's the wrong word, reconcile. You guys have to reconcile. Sorry, that was my, I can't even think of the word for not knowing my words. Dyslexia kicking in twice then. You have to, I just lost the word again, reconcile the idea that you have people who call themselves, this is not me woke broing them, calling everyone a Nazi, you have people calling themselves Nazis, flying swastikas, doing salutes, right? Those people are identifying themselves who are agreeing with your message. You have to reconcile with that, and it's indisputable. Now, you could say the enemy of the enemy is my friend. You could say, no, that's really all you can say, because you can't actually challenge what I've said, because people who called themselves Nazis, who carried swastikas, who did Nazi salutes, turned up to her rally and supported her. They were on her side. Doesn't mean Posie Parker wanted them there. Doesn't mean that she endorses them. Doesn't mean that she is one. She might be, she might not be. I don't know. Doesn't mean that she wanted them, but they supported her. Someone said to me in a tweet, one of dozens, that I was calling her a Nazi, and just associating them with her means I was calling her a Nazi. And I just basically said, so this is what happens, yeah? When the British Armed Services and the American Armed Services fought in World War II, they were on the same side, but they weren't the same entity. They weren't the same army. They were different armies, and they had different countries and different identities, but they were on the same side. This person, Posie Parker, and this group, the Nazis, are on the same side, furthering the same narrative, to which most people were saying, oh yeah, because Nazis are so pro-women, aren't they? And it says, no, they're anti-trans.
Yeah.
This is the point you need to reconcile with. Chewy.
This is actually very similar to what we said around the parliamentary protests as well, right? I don't care how valid your argument is. If the Nazis turn up and support it, you have a very brief moment in time where you go, get the fuck away from us.
Yeah.
And that's the only chance you have to keep your argument even a shred of relevance, in my opinion. You get them the fuck away from you, because that is the appropriate reaction when a group of Nazis turn up to anything.
And let me say this, right? And someone's saying in the chat that she defended them in 2023. I didn't even need to go there. Like, to be honest with you, I don't label people very much. It's very easy to label those people from Melbourne Nazis because they call themselves Nazis and they're holding Nazi memorabilia and stuff. So it's very easy. I don't typically do that to people. So whether she did or didn't, whether she is of that belief or not, the point was, and this is what's so brilliant about that chart, she can't hide that they're on her side. Right? You can't hide that. And now what you got to do, unless you are a dishonest actor, which there was a lot of them on Twitter over the weekend, this is what now you have to do. Hey, we've got Nazis who want to further the same narrative as we do. Do we need to stop and check ourselves before we wreck ourselves? Because people are saying things like, oh, if Nazis listen to your podcast, does that make you a Nazi? I'm like, well, if Nazis were saying exactly what I was saying and then wanting to further my message, I'd probably pause and go, fuck me, what message am I putting out there? But apparently they don't. I've got one more clip for you, Joe, before we move into the last thing for tonight.
Yeah.
I saw this just today. This was uploaded by Posie Parker, I think last week.
I talked to my family yesterday, and I've been talking to them over the last few days about this. And they have asked me not to go.
To New Zealand.
And I just don't think I can. I don't think I can. I don't think I'm going to get in the country. And even if I do, I don't think the police at all are going to protect us. I think it's just...
They're not private security.
Just impossible to go.
I also watched a longer clip on Calvin Morgan's Twitter feed. And she said in that clip, because the New Zealand police are corrupt. So that's why this clip in the write-up says Posie Parker is not coming to New Zealand because something, the New Zealand police are corrupt. But that just kind of wraps up this story. I've been talking to Ali in the last few days, the tomato sauce juicer on Twitter, and she is open to coming and having a chat with us. Suggest that maybe after the court case. So maybe later in the week we may have her on to have a chat about her perspective and her side of the conversation. I'm done with that, Chewy. Is there anything else you want to wrap up with before we get to your favourite character from Red Dwarf?
Isn't it funny that it's her family that's stopping her from coming? It's not money. It's not the fact that we dog walked her out of this country. It's not that other people standing up against her saw what happened in Australia and New Zealand and have used that. Good job, Dublin. That sort of counter protest is gaining momentum, and she is losing her argument. This person did never. What was it? She always wins. Is not winning.
Always,
and we're part of that.
Yeah, actually, I need to make another one of those. The last time I made that, I got 100,000 views. I need to make another one of those and do it for that video. That's exactly what I should do. I might do that tomorrow. So yeah, and look, it's brilliant. I heard someone today say something like, I'm not talking about Posie Parker here, but I'm talking about conflict in general. I've got the wrong words, but like be gentle with the person and rally against the system. And I quite like that idea. And I think that this chant, you can't hide, you got Nazis on your side, is a perfect way of actually, it's almost taking Posie Parker out of that conversation, because it's not actually needing to engage with her. It's going, just remember, those people who agree with you hate Jews. and, hate gay people and are anti-trans. And so these people who disagree with you, even if you want to go down the enemy of my enemy as my friend, are still on your side. And what's the debate for there? There's no debate. There's no debate whether they are or aren't. They are on her side. They are wanting to further her narrative. They are singing from the same song sheet. So whether she's into them or not, or agrees or disagrees, I'm not saying that doesn't matter because it doesn't matter, but to me, them being on her side, which actually, Chewy, in fairness, we've been saying this since day one. It's like, how does it sit with you that these people want the same thing as you do and they want to further your message? That's something that you have to come to terms with, people. You have to, because you can't just ignore it, because it's inexplicably accurate. I think it's the wrong word, but it's unchallengeable that they want the same thing as you guys want. It's unchallengeable. What does that mean for what you want? That's all I would ask you. Done.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, let's get into Rimmer on TVNZ. I've only got 3 clips for this, and could have done more, I guess, on Rimmer, but I knew it would be a long show anyway, so I've got 3 clips. One of them is a bit longer. But this first one is, I think you've probably heard about some of their policies around welfare and what they're going to do. And one of the things is, if you are you're an addict, like I am, I have addiction issues, not drug addiction, but I've had addiction issues, and it's been something that I've needed to get healthy with for a long time. But if you're an addict who refuses to get help and go into like a place to help you, then they will cut you off from your benefit. That's one of their plans to do. So this is Jack Tame picking up on that thought and asking what happens to these addicts after they get cut off. Where do they go?
Well, in the case that they lose a benefit, they're going to have to start looking at what their other options are. And I suspect that somewhere someone is going to say to them, right, it looks like you're going to have to go back to that course. It looks like you're going to have to make more of an effort, because the alternative is that if they continue to be paid to stay addicted, they may be even worse off than you imagine if they were to lose that benefit.
Do drug addicts make rational decisions?
Well, by definition, they're not making a rational decision.
So why would they then choose to follow a rational outcome by pursuing an addiction course or something like that?
Well, I guess the question is why a government should be rational, why a government should continue to pay someone to engage in self-destructive behaviour.
And the answer to that is, obviously he's using loaded terms, a government should look after people who need looking after. If you're an addict and you're non-functioning, then you're sick, you're ill, and you may not just be able to go, okay, we'll just give it up and turn our lives around. A government's job is to look after its citizens. And if you don't have the capacity to look after yourself because of addiction, a government's job is not to go, well, I'm going to cut you loose then and you can move into that other netherworld country where nobody lives, Chewy.
Pat, are you suggesting that this might be a healthcare related issue rather than a crime and punishment related issue?
Perhaps. And I am coming back to that idea that we've come up with in the last few months about how the right will try and use facts with no empathy. And what I am seeing with this beautiful freeze frame, and he's using his O face right now, is he is the quintessential example of no empathy. Now, I'm not also saying tree hugger, only empathy, because that would be the extreme opposite on the other side. But no empathy is actually going to get you nothing when it comes to positive health stats or positive societal stats. Because if you cut someone off from their benefit, what are they going to do? Do you think they're just going to go, oh, well, I'll just live on air and water from now on, and I'll live in this house that I don't have to pay, that I have to pay rent for, that'll magically appear? What's going to happen?
But they'll do a couple of things, Pat. They'll die, or they'll do crimes and then have to go to jail.
But that's good, because we're going to get to that. He's building bigger jails for people. So let's have a look at that shortly.
Oh, fantastic.
Remember, they're in a difficult bind, whatever happens. The government's role is to actually use proper logic and use proper morals, not to pay someone to continue in a self-destructive state.
It's a really interesting vibe he went down as well, using morals, act the party of proper morals. I don't know how he quite gets there, but he does. This part of the conversation that's coming up right now, I think, is the most telling of the complete horse shit that is the pile of ACT, right? It's a horseshit pile of ACT, because this is a great conversation around how much money is spent trying to get back benefit fraud, and how much of a focus Rimmer has on benefit fraud versus on tax evasion. It's a great part of the conversation, and If you believe and you want to follow ACT because you want them to look after your taxpayers' money, you want them to be more fiscally responsible, then this is a slap in the face to that. And it goes to show, when you see behind the curtain, of what ACT really is, which is a punitive party wanting to put their knee on the neck of the poor. That's what they are.
So in the 2022 year, 4,700 benefit cases were investigated, facilitated or had intervention in New Zealand. Just 33 of those resulted in criminal prosecutions. Now, according to Victoria University, we spent $50 million investigating benefit fraud, but we went to the Ministry of Social Development. Their numbers show that the total overpayment to those fraudsters was just $2.3 million. So
did you get that? They spent $50 million and they got $2 million back. And this is where Mr. Seymour wants to put more focus.
$1 million investigating, $2.3 million overpaid to those people who were convicted. So that's about a 5% return on taxpayers' money there. Is that fiscally responsible?
Well, I guess you have to ask the question, what's the counterfactual? If you weren't to have those investigations, if the MSD said, look, we actually don't care about fraud anymore, just have at it. Then you might have much greater costs.
That's not what we're suggesting, though. We're not suggesting that there are no investigations.
Do you hear what he's doing as well? Which is really interesting for an ACT person to do this. He's talking about, yes, but we need to make plans today for where it might lead. But so many other things in his policy is like, I don't care where it's going to lead, we're going to cut it off today. But when it's his policy, he wants to think about we should spend more money today to stop a problem in the future. But other ACT policies are going to be like, we're spending too much money today and it's not making an immediate impact. We're going to stop it. Like the zero, I'm going to talk about zero fees as well shortly.
Whatsoever. I'm merely pointing out that your concern is around taxpayer money, and I've just shown you the numbers there that show $50 million have gone into investigating them. It's brought back $2.3 million.
But equally, you have to ask what happens next. So if we weren't doing this investigation, if there wasn't the possibility that you'll be investigated for benefit fraud, you might find that a much greater number of people would take advantage of the system.
Nobody's
and
fucking
that, in the
suggesting
long term,
that.
not only cost the taxpayer,
and there's no evidence for that,
but it's about the morals and ethics of it. If the government's view is that a whole lot of people have to work hard, get up every morning, be taxed to fund this, and on the other hand, if you take the money,
But hang on, those same people are getting up and they're paying money to fund the people going after the benefit fraud, and they always talk about being parties of businesses. If this business put $50 million in and took $2.5 million out, it would be a failing business. So why is it okay for him now not to want to follow the business model, which is the best spend for the best return? Because every other fucking thing that this party does always wants to put to the top of the list the best spend for the best return. And when Jack Tame points out his fucking hypocrisy, all of a sudden it's, yes, but it's about the future and it's about what will happen next. And it's like, no. You always talk about the best spend for the best return. This is not that. Do you know what is the best spend for the best return that he doesn't want to get into? Fucking tax evasion as we get to that.
No effort to get off your addiction, overcome stress or whatever other problem you have, then that's okay. We'll just keep giving you the money. Then what happens over time, apart from you'll get more people taking taxpayer money and not making any effort, you'll also erode the culture of New Zealand, that people that get up and make a difference
the whole
say, well, actually,
culture
it
of
makes
New
no difference
Zealand.
to me.
Well,
People who don't will find that it makes no difference.
I mean, it's not a glamorous life living on a benefit. It's not like you're living in luxury. What evidence do you have that it will erode?
So are you saying that if your policy is that we're not going to investigate fraud?
He's a TV
policy is
presenter.
not that we don't investigate fraud. That's not that you've gone to the binary there. I'm merely saying that the money we investigate in fraud isn't necessarily representing the money we get back. And if your concern is around fiscal responsibility and spending taxpayers' money wisely, then that's another concern. Look, I mean, look at this. Look at this though. So according to Victoria University, and Professor Lisa Marriott, the IRD typically identifies and pursues roughly $1 billion in tax evasion.
$1 billion.
But some estimates put the total tax evasion at 7 times as high.
$7
billion.
billion.
So if you are so committed to persecuting fraud...
Can I just check something with Chewy?
You can, Pat. It's your show.
Is $1 billion, it's our show, is $1 billion more than 2.5 million?
Let me run that through the computer. Yes.
So if I wanted to look after New Zealanders' money, would I be more interested in going after the billion or the 2.5 million?
Well, there is a problem there, Pat.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you've asked.
Thanks.
Those guys have all donated a shit ton of money to my party. And to draw attention away from them, I'm going after the lowest in society.
You mean like the most vulnerable, the easiest to shit on? Is that what you mean?
Absolutely.
Okay,
the guys with no resources to fight it. We're just going to make their lives worse, just so the guys that have funneled an epic amount of money into my fundraising campaign, that we don't look at that.
Yeah.
Now, I've got friends
Seems
that
reasonable.
work in the IRD, and there are an enormous amount of people in the IRD that would love to be let off the fucking chain and go after these guys. They would live for it. They'd come in on the weekends. They would have bounties. It would look like the FBI's most wanted in their office all of the time. They know who to go for, and they can't.
Yeah.
They don't have the fun. They don't have the money for it. That sort of thing. It's like
Right. We'll keep going.
Can we also just one point?
Yep.
I just
Yep.
want to draw the fact that the ACT is on paper supposed to be a libertarian party, right? The libertarian views would be like, fucking take all the drugs you want. You know, do whatever you want to yourself, as long as you're not hurting anybody else. But we'll put in the framework to get you out of it if you want. But then suddenly, when it comes to this, they're full on fucking crime and punishment.
They are. So let's keep going, because Jack's going to delve a bit deeper into this whole IRD tax evasion thing.
Fraud and to upholding moral standards. How much more money will you provide the IRD to pursue tax evasion?
Well, in our view, what we need to do with tax is have a lower,
policy.
flatter, simpler tax.
It's not the question. He's now going into policy
system.
Sorry,
so that there's
tax
less
evasion,
opportunity. So, well, in the case of tax evasion, I think that it's something that's completely wrong. People should follow the law.
So how much more money does your policy put into tax evasion?
Well, bear in mind, Jack, bear in mind that we don't actually have a policy to increase prosecutions on welfare or IRD. We're quite happy.
Well, you talk a lot about fraud in your welfare policy. In fact, it's 8 times in 4 pages the word fraud gets brought up in welfare.
It's almost like he's trying to highlight fraud in welfare, but not in the tax system. Like 8 times in 4 pages. It's almost like he's trying to, for some reason, paint a picture that the fraud within the welfare system, maybe there's like an audience he's speaking to that wants to actually, you know, see the knee put on the neck of those fucking no-hopers and get that $2.5 million back whilst they continue to avoid paying tax of somewhere between $1 and $7 billion. It's almost like that's the thing.
I can't find any policy around tax evasion, even though it potentially costs us $7 billion a year.
Well, potentially, doesn't it? But the fact
we don't know. I
potentially
asked you how much welfare fraud costs.
Potentially, we'll just bat that one out of the way. Potentially, maybe.
I was asking, you couldn't give me a figure there.
But what I'm interested in is what is the underlying policy beneath these areas that government's active in. And
I thought you were interested in taxpayer money.
Well, I'm interested in taxpayer money, of course.
Yeah, I thought you were interested in what was morally right.
Well, I'm absolutely interested in what's morally right. But you'll notice that if you want to have an argument about how much money is being used to take on tax evasion, if you want to have an argument,
he can't even say it. He can't even say the word. Well, I've never heard this word before. What's this word? Tax evasion. What is that word? Tax. What? Can you explain that word to me? Is it tax evasion?
If you want to have an argument about how much money is being used to take on tax evasion.
Oh, yeah, that word.
If you want to have an argument about how much money is used to go after benefit fraud,
that's a separate that one quickly,
argument. Though. Our welfare policy simply makes the point that if you are on a drug addiction, if you are...
I've never heard him stammer like this before. Even when he's talking shit, he's very confident and he goes for it. He's flustered in this conversation, and it's a different looking rimmer. You know,
on a drug addiction, if you are taking medical leave for stress, for example.
No, again, I mean, you are the one who uses fraud, right? I mean, you're a party that says it's focused on serious policy in this election, not just populist issues. But you mentioned fraud 8 times in your welfare policy. I can't find a single policy that comes down to pursuing tax evasion or white collar crime. So we spend $50 million investigating benefit fraudsters. But the Serious Fraud Office gets $17 million. So would you commit to increasing that funding?
Look, we very well might. As I say, we haven't.
We very well might. We very well might. We We very well might. Shall we? We might. I mean, because you've got me on the spot, and if I said no, I'd look hypocritical. We very well might. I've got one more clip to play, and it's the one that infuriates me probably most of all, Chewy. But do you want to say anything to that before we get into it?
Yeah, I do. Can we just look at what ACT and National are setting up here? They're in a time post-pandemic, I hate that term, but post-pandemic, in a time of high inflation where we still have pretty much record low unemployment, right? Yep. The idea of having everyone in employment is just fucking bananas. And because of the way that they changed how we record this, those unemployed, those long-term unemployed, the dole bludgers, can we talk about who they are?
Yeah.
Because it's the people that are unable to work. This is the invalids, sickness beneficiaries, all of that sort of stuff. They've all been lumped in that unemployment basket. And what they are setting up now is an easy target. They can't defend themselves. They don't have the resources. They don't have the lobby groups. They are just the whipping boy for the right wing. And they are setting up such abusive policies, right? Because it's like, oh, we've got most people are working. Why aren't these people working?
Yeah.
They are setting up policies that if the right wing get their other point of view, which is to cool inflation, we need a fuck ton of people to lose their jobs, they are going to fall straight into these punitive policies as well. So this is just it's narrow thinking. It is short-term thinking, unless that's not the problem that they're trying to solve.
Yeah.
They're not trying to solve addiction problems. They're not trying to solve unemployment problems. What the problem that they are solving is, I am not the government. And I know that this shit plays well. So we're going to leave our humanity at the door. And that's the point that we're going to hammer.
Yeah. No, well said, sir. Right. The last part of this conversation irks me to the highest degree.
Let's go.
He is talking about building more prison population, more beds for more prisoners.
Oh, there we go.
Now, you might say it irks me because of having more prison beds. There's actually a particular part of this which irks me most of all. I'll explain it as we go through. This clip is only a total of about 80 seconds.
So we checked with corrections. There are currently 2,500 empty beds across our prison network, including men's and women's prisons. So you want to build an extra just over 2,000 beds. So that would be roughly 4,500 extra beds compared to where we're at now. How much does it cost per year to house a prisoner?
We actually want to build about an extra 500. It's about 100.
500 a year, though. It's 500 a year over 4 years. So if we use that capacity...
Okay, sure. Everyone's between 1 year and 4 years.
So how much...
Okay, that's accurate. Yes, you're fair. No, you're correct.
193,000 is the current estimate. Now, you've got to remember that that's the current average amount. I mean, extra may not cost as much as the average.
But if we were to use the beds in the capacity that you say is necessary, just so we're, I mean, that would be in the vicinity of $850 million a year.
Let me put it another way for you, Jack. The cost to the average New Zealander of having 10,000 people imprisoned at any given time is just over $1 a day. Now, if that means that people are in prison getting decent rehab, the streets are safe, you can run a dairy, you can run a jewellery store, and New Zealand really is a great place to bring up kids again, then I think that's worth it. So you can argue about the price, but the price of having a good justice system with the same prison capacity as this country had in 2017, you know what that is? It's $1 a day per New Zealand.
So how high are our recidivism?
So this infuriates me more than anything. And I'll tell you why. He's trying to sell a policy based on a small incremental amount per person. Now, Chewy, you can go nuts on the putting more people in prison, which is a university of crime, and go there. You can have that part of this conversation, right? I'll give that to you. What I'm going to go nuts on is this asshole is saying it's just $1 per person, like a fucking World Vision ad. It's just $1 per person per day for the whole year, and that means we'll have safe streets. Now, at the same time he's doing that, this twat face is cancelling tons of policies. Guess what? Fees free, which I talked about earlier. Guess what that is, Chewy? That's about 31 cents per person per day to give the first year of tertiary education to our young people for free. He's tried to make this sound $850 million like it's a small incremental amount of money. Yet every policy he wants to get away from, he says, well, that's $500 million. He's not fucking prepared to go, yes, it's $850 million a year. He's going, it's $1 a day per person. So, Mr. Seymour, free education for the first year of tertiary study for our young New Zealanders is 30 cents per person per day. Again, I'd like to check my maths with you, but that sounds like less than $1 per person per day. So if $1 per person per day is okay to spend, why are we getting rid of policies that are a fraction of that per person per day, like fees free? Right, that's the first thing. The second thing to remember is that ACT is going to do with this is from their website, whilst taking in less tax, whilst reversing interest deductibility charge, while reversing government's recent workplace relations changes, including Matariki public holiday, new sick leave entitlements, and the 90-day trials, while reinstating 90-day trials, and while pausing the minimum wage for 3 years. I did a tweet in the weekend that showed the last 6 years of National and their minimum wage raises, which made it a total of 16.7%, and the last 6 years of Labour, which is the minimum raise has been raised by 33-ish%. 250 weeks, $50 a week minimum wage earners are better off today than they were when Labour came in. The last 6 years of National, it was $90. They were $90 a week better off. ACT wants to spend more tax money on prisons and freeze the minimum wage whilst there's still inflation going on, which means as an actual percentage, it will be going backwards for 3 years, and sell it on the idea that it's just $1 a day to put all these more people into prisons. It's just $1 a day, Chewy. It's only $1 a day per person. Yet at the same time, he is freezing minimum wages. He's cancelling a whole bunch of things that are incredibly positive and good for New Zealanders. And he's not prepared to actually go, well, that's 30 cents. And the last thing is this, right? His partner after the election, right, is National. They're offering minimum wage a $10 tax cut maximum you'll get. He's already told us that one of his ideas is going to cost $7 a week per person. So that straight away cuts that $10 tax cut down to $3. And for people who are getting $2 a week, which we've seen, you're actually now getting negative $5 a week, because National's going to give you $2 a week and ACT's going to take $7 a week off you, because they want to put more people in prison. So it's just infuriating to me, Chewy. Yours, sir.
I'm just putting on my Rimmer hat. Yes, you're right. The numbers are wrong. So the best thing that we can do is sell off our prisons. Private prisons that we have just expanded for the unemployed that I have just made. Look, if $1 a day is fine, why does it have to be deployed into a prison?
Exactly.
Prisons, look, I'm not going to take away that there are some great rehabilitation programs in prison. There are people that do some excellent fucking work. But imagine if we poured that money into their lives before they got to prison.
Yep. It's only $1 a day. Let's put that $850 million a week into preemptive, into fence at the top of the cliff policies to help stop them going to prison, Chewy, rather than $850 million in beds so they can lie in prison.
These guys love pulling ideas from overseas when it's crime and punishment related, right?
Yep.
Let's take some crime and punishment ideas from the US, the country that has the most incarcerated people on earth. Per capita, just mental, and we tried to follow them. Same with the UK, just does not work. We never look at places that have more proactive ways of stopping people from getting to prison. We never look at things that are like investing in the early years of citizens so they don't turn to crime. We don't look at healthcare solutions. We don't look at mental health care. We don't look at any of these things that so many groups point out and say, this is where the money needs to be. We need to pour it into schools. We need to pour it into the children's communities to push them off this path way earlier than we bother doing now. It's infuriating. It's a complete moral failure.
It is.
And these guys are going to cruise in if we let them. If we don't talk to the people in our lives, the guys that are going, oh, you know what? I'm going to vote blue because I think we need a change.
Yeah.
It's that whole thing. We need a change. Yes, they are promising change. Is it good change? My argument is it's fucking not. It sounds dystopian. And all we have to do is look at what they did last time. They spiked our prison population. They spiked our housing prices. They spiked our unemployment. They spiked our borrowing. They spiked everything. Everything that they say that they are good at is proven false in time. Do not let them get away with this.
All right. If there's any chats to mention, we can bring them up next, because let's wrap up the show now and say huge thanks to all of our patrons. Also, just as a reminder, you are fabulous people who decided to buy some merch last week. That has been printed today, but it was too late in the day for me to pick it up. So I'll pick it up tomorrow, and it'll be on the courier. What day is it tomorrow? Tuesday. So it'll be on the courier Wednesday morning. So you'll be able to receive your merch from last week. I guess it'll be there to you probably Thursday, Friday, depending on where you are in the country. But for the next couple of weeks, we're going to remind you about our patrons, and our lovely patrons. Want to say hey to NZ Doom, who's joined in the last week, and BB has joined in the last week as well as Coffee Runners. As you can see, we've had a producer move on. We thank him for the time he spent with us. He's a great asset to us. But there is a space for you to be the producer now. If you want to find out more about the levels of support, if you're enjoying what we're doing and you want to help us out, keep a few lights on and stuff, then you can just simply head to patreon.com/big hairy news. And all the details are there. We'd love to have you on board. We'd love to have you as a part of what we do. There we go. Chewy, anything you want to add in there?
Is it tomorrow night that the debate is?
Yes. So 6:50. So if you're watching us right now or you're watching us on demand, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel in particular. Are you going to vomit on me, dog? Don't you dare. Already thrown up once in the studio today. Don't you dare.
Yeah, debate tomorrow, so it's important to be hydrated.
Yep, 6:50.
Have we got our bingo sorted yet? We've talked a big game for 6 months of bingo. I don't know if we've done it yet.
Let's not bring it up and see what happens. See if someone can come together with something tonight.
Very smooth.
So 6:50. So set your alarms and also hit the notification bell and also subscribe to YouTube in particular, because then when we do go live, you'll see us. But remember to join us tomorrow night as we watch the debate together, and we'll tell you tomorrow night what's happening after that, if anything. There's a chance that we might have some people come back with us, or there's also a chance that we might just do that tomorrow night and then on Wednesday night go back over the actual event as well. We'll figure that out tomorrow, but 6:50 tomorrow night we'll be here.
Nice.
Any chats you want to highlight before we head off?
I tell you what, mate, chat has been flying all night, and I'm not current. So let's have a wee look.
I changed the latency on the chat for you people, so what that basically means is they'll come through to us more quickly, because there used to be like a 20-second delay. We now get them after about 5 or 10 seconds.
Okay, it's been noticed.
So they don't move more quickly, but the message, us talking in real time and it being played and people responding, is now quicker than it was last week. Last week there was about a 20 or 30-second delay. Now it's quicker than that. So we'll see your stuff more quickly if you get it up there as well.
Yeah, look, I did star a bunch of stuff. It's all from the top of the show, not this end. So
all right, remember tomorrow night, bring a friend. If no one's watched our stuff before, if you love us and you love what we do, tomorrow night will be a good instruction. We probably won't spend a lot of time talking during the actual debate. We'll probably just watch most of it with you. I don't know, maybe a few pithy comments in the background, Joey. But what we also may do is open up Discord during the ad breaks. I'm assuming TVNZ will have ad breaks, so when they're having ad breaks, we might open up Discord, and you can jump in and have a quick 60-second chat as to how you think it's going, etc., etc., etc. So other than that, we're done for the night, and we'll catch you tomorrow night from 6:50 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News as we watch the first leaders debate together. That's us for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night from 6:50, and we'll tell you then what's going to happen after the show, if anything. But that's us. We done, Chewy?
Yep, we done.
All right, team. We'll see you all tomorrow. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.